Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a bold statement. It's how with 80% of people make these 3 daily mistakes, and chances are you're one of them. It's so ordinary, you might even laugh at first. But hear me out. The moment you open your eyes in the morning, you are faced with a choice. Not many of us think of it as a choice because it feels automatic. We wake up, roll over, and reach for that glowing screen on the nightstand. And in doing that, without even standing up, we've already surrendered the day. We've allowed the world to speak before we've let God speak, before we've gathered our own thoughts, before we've even drawn a full breath. We've let in headlines, half-truths, curated images, text messages, work emails, distractions, dressed up as necessities. The first voice you hear in the morning often sets the tone for every voice you hear afterward. And when that first voice is the world's voice, you begin your day in reaction mode. That means you're already behind. We are not made to live reactively. God created us to live purposefully, intentionally. But what we've done is slowly train ourselves, day after day, to relinquish the steering wheel before the car even leaves the driveway. And then we wonder why our day feels like a blur. We wonder why we're anxious, why our minds are cluttered, why there's no peace. You can't sow chaos and expect to reap clarity. Now, I'm not here to make you feel bad. I'm not saying you're wicked because you check your phone, but I am saying you're not meant to begin your day that way. You are not meant to rise up from sleep and immediately bow to the altar of notification. You are not meant to be discipled more by your news feed than by the Word of God. And make no mistake, you are being discipled by whatever you let shape your mind first thing in the morning. There's a principle here, and it's woven through all of Scripture. What you seek first will govern everything else. Seek first the kingdom of God, Jesus said. That wasn't just a theological statement. It's practical. Seek first. That means right away. That means with priority. If you give God the first moments of your day, you give Him the helm. You say, Lord, lead me. Before the world says anything to me, I want to hear you. Now you might say, but I'm busy. I have kids. I have work. I have a long list of things waiting for me. I know, we all do. But let me tell you something. You don't have time not to. 5 minutes of stillness with God can reorder an entire day of chaos. 1 moment in the presence of truth can silence 1,000 lies you didn't even realize were whispering to you. Some people say, well, I'll pray late. I'll read my Bible at night. That's fine. But don't miss the truth here. When you give God your leftovers, don't be surprised if your day feels like scraps. I'm not trying to shame you. I want you to taste something better. There is joy in waking up and saying, Lord, before I move, speak. Before I run, guide. Before I worry, remind me who I am in you. When you begin the day reactively, you train your soul to panic. You train your thoughts to chase shadows. But when you begin with intention, with purpose, with prayer, with the Word, you anchor yourself. You build your house on the rock, not on shifting sand. And that makes all the difference when the storms come, which they always do. Think about it. When you let your phone tell you how to feel, what to want, who to envy, what to fear, you've already lost the fight before it's begun. You're not living, you're reacting, you're not following Christ, you're being led around by whatever noise is loudest. I'm pleading with you, stop handing over your peace so cheaply. Stop giving away your thoughts to things that will not satisfy. Start your day by listening to the one who made the day. Sit still, breathe, thank Him, ask Him to lead you. Read His Word like it's food, because it is. Pray not with fancy words, but with a humble heart. Lord, here I am. I don't know what's coming today, but I want you to have the first word. This isn't about a rule. It's not legalism. It's about life. It's about freedom. It's about not living like the world, not thinking like the world, not being conformed to the patterns of the world, but being transformed. And that transformation begins in the first few moments of every day. You can't live with purpose if you start your day with chaos. You can't walk in truth if the first thing you feed on is noise. You can't expect God to be your guide if you're checking in with everyone else before you check in with Him. So tomorrow morning, make the change. Don't touch the phone. Don't check the inbox. Don't scroll. Instead, sit at the feet of Jesus. Let him speak. Let him fill. Let him reorder your heart. That one shift, small as it seems, can change your whole life. Most people start their day in reaction, but you don't have to be most people. It hides behind busy schedules, flashing notifications, and the pride we take in doing 100 things at once. But make no mistake, this mistake is robbing you. It is draining your energy, clouding your mind, and stealing your purpose, one scattered moment at a time. It's the mistake of multitasking, and it is not a mark of strength. It is a symptom of a distracted heart. You see, we live in a time where constant motion is mistaken for progress. We flip between tabs, juggle conversations, send emails while eating, scroll through news while in meetings, reply to texts while praying. We've become so conditioned to noise, to fragmentation, that stillness now feels like laziness. Focus feels like a luxury. But let me ask you, when's the last time you actually gave your full attention to a task? When's the last time your mind wasn't fractured into pieces, pulled in 5 directions, trying to survive instead of living with intention? We are not infinite. We're not made to operate like machines. You and I were created with limits, and those limits are not a flaw. They are wisdom from our Creator. But in trying to push past those limits, in trying to do everything at once, we lose the ability to do anything well. You cannot serve 2 masters, Jesus said. That truth doesn't just apply to money or sin. It applies to your attention. You cannot give your best to anything if your mind is divided. The world applauds multitasking, but heaven never has, because heaven values faithfulness, not speed, depth, not noise, obedience, not busyness. You may think you're getting more done, but you're not. You're just leaving pieces of yourself scattered across 100 tasks, none of them finished, none of them given the full weight of your attention. And over time, that pattern becomes not just how you work, but how you live. Distracted, drained, distant, always running, never arrive. Even in the things of God, we've brought this multitasking spirit into the church. We can't sit through a sermon without checking our phones. We can't pray without making mental to-do lists. We read scripture like we skim headlines. We've lost the art of holy focus, and that loss has consequences. Because God does not speak in chaos. He does not compete with the noise. He waits for stillness, for attention, for reverence. I'm not saying you don't have responsibilities. I'm not saying you can't be productive. But hear me, productivity without presence is not godly. Efficiency without focus is not fruitful. You can move fast and still be lost. You can do many things and still miss the one thing that matters. Do you remember Martha in the scriptures? She was busy doing good things, even serving, preparing, hosting. But Jesus looked at her with compassion and said, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but only one thing is necessary. Mary had chosen it. She sat at his feet, undistracted, unhurried. She chose focus. That same invitation is open to you, to stop chasing the wind, to stop measuring your value by how much you accomplish, to stop multitasking your way through life, and instead be present to your work, to your family, to your God, because when you give your full attention to what's in front of you, something beautiful happens. You begin to experience peace, not because everything is done, but because you are fully where you are. You're no longer divided, you're whole, and wholeness is what we were made for. Let me give you something practical, because this isn't just about theology, it's about your habit. The next time you sit down to do something, whether it's reading the Word, answering an email, or having a conversation with your child, do just that one thing. Turn off the distractions. Put the phone face down. Close the other tabs. Look them in the eye. Focus. It will feel strange at first. It will feel slow. But what you'll discover is this: presence is powerful. The quality of what you do will increase. The peace you feel will return, and the people around you will notice. Because multitasking doesn't just damage your own soul, it damages relationships. When you don't give someone your full attention, you're not just being busy, you're telling them they're not important enough. You're saying, you get part of me, not all of me. And we wonder why our relationships feel shallow, why our friendships lack depth. Why even in a room full of people, we feel alone, it's because we're only halfway there. We are called to live differently, not scattered, not split, but whole. With our minds renewed, with our attention given fully to what matters. If the enemy can't make you fall with temptation, he'll try to make you ineffective through distraction. Because distracted people are not dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. They're too busy trying to keep up, too fragmented to hear the whisper of God, too stretched thin to make an impact. But when a person begins to live with focus, when they learn to quiet the noise, to give God their full attention, to be fully present in each moment, that person becomes dangerous. That person becomes powerful. Not because they're doing more, but because they're doing what matters, and they're doing it well. So I ask you, what would your life look like if you stopped multitasking your way through it? What would your soul feel like if you gave yourself permission to slow down, to focus, to be present? What would your walk with God look like if you treated each moment with Him as sacred, not something squeezed between meetings, but something worth guarding? You don't need to do more. You need to be more present. You need to return to simplicity, to depth, to stillness. That's where clarity lives. That's where peace dwells. That's where God's. Now let me speak to you about something even more subtle, because this one doesn't always feel like a mistake. In fact, sometimes it feels like strength. It feels like dedication, responsibility, or even sacrifice. But it's slowly draining life from your soul, and it's robbing you of the strength you think you're showing. It's the daily neglect of your body and mind, the quiet way we ignore our limits, overlook our needs, and act like we're machines instead of people created with care and intention. You see, it's easy to talk about spiritual things and miss the fact that God didn't just make your soul. He made your body. He formed it from the dust with His hands. He breathed life into it. And yet so many of us treat our bodies as afterthoughts. We skip meals, we sleep too little, we sit for hours on end, we feed ourselves junk mentally, emotionally, and physically, and we expect to live effective, focused, joy-filled lives. We've come to believe that exhaustion is a badge of honor. That being constantly tired means we're doing something right. That pouring ourselves out with no margin somehow glorifies God. But friend, that's not faithfulness. That's burnout, wearing a religious mask. God is not glorified by your busyness if your busyness is killing you. He is not honored by a life lived at such a frantic pace that your soul can't catch its breath. He does not call you to pour from an empty cup. He calls you to abide. And abiding is not frantic. Abiding is not burnt out. Abiding is not collapsing into bed each night with nothing left to give. The truth is, when you neglect the body, you dull the mind. When you neglect the mind, you weaken the spirit. And when the spirit is weak, everything else begins to unravel. You begin to think lies are truth. You start reacting instead of praying. You lose clarity, and eventually you lose joy. Not all at once, quietly, slowly, one day at a time. Some of you are trying to fight spiritual battles with an exhausted body. You're trying to love your families when your tank is on empty. You're trying to make decisions, hear God's voice, discern His will, and you're doing it while physically and mentally worn out. That's like trying to see clearly through a cracked, dirty window. You're doing your best, but it's not working, and you don't understand why. The answer isn't always deeper effort. Sometimes it's deeper rest. God gave you a body, and He expects you to care for it, not idolize it, not obsess over it, but honor it, steward it, and the same goes for your mind. What are you feeding it? What are you exposing it to? Hour after hour, day after day. Is it truth, or is it fear, anger, envy, distraction? You can't fill your mind with garbage and expect it to produce clarity. You can't fill your body with exhaustion and expect it to produce endurance. The world is constantly throwing things at us, demands, images, ideas, lies. If you're not guarding your mind, it will be overrun. If you're not resting your body, it will collapse. This isn't about self-help. It's about stewardship. This is about living in a way that honors the God who gave you breath. He didn't make you limitless. He made you human, fragile, dependent, and He called that very good. But instead of receiving that gift, we push past it. We ignore it. We abuse the vessel and call it devotion. But what kind of devotion dishonors the very thing God made? You want to be strong in the Lord, then care for the temple He gave you. That means sleep when you need sleep. Eat what fuels, not what numbs. Step outside and breathe the air God created. Move your body, not because the world demands a certain image, but because God gave you muscles, lungs, and bones that are meant to move. It also means silence. It means stepping away from the noise. Your mind needs room to breathe. You were not created to process thousands of inputs every day. You need quiet. You need stillness. You need moments where nothing is happening except you being still before the Lord. Because in that stillness, the fog lifts. In that stillness, you start to hear again. And what you hear is not condemnation, it's invitation. Come away, rest, be restored. This is why Jesus withdrew so often. He was the Son of God, and still he stepped away from the crowds, from the ministry, from the demands. Why? Because even perfection in flesh needed rest. What makes us think You see, the enemy doesn't need to tempt you into scandal if he can just keep you too tired to pray, too distracted to hear, too numb to feel. That's his tactic for most people. Not a dramatic fall, just slow erosion, a little more weariness, a little more noise, a little less strength, until one day you look around and realize you're still going through the motions, but your fire has gone out. Don't let it happen. Don't let the daily neglect of your mind and body become the silent thief of your joy, your focus, your effectiveness. You are not invincible, but you are loved. You are not a machine, but you are called. And because you are called, God gives you what you need, not just spiritually, but physically, emotionally, mentally. Receive it. Don't apologize for needing rest. Don't downplay your exhaustion. Don't pretend that stress is just part of the pack. No, your limits are a gift, a boundary drawn by a loving Creator who knows that without rest, without care, without attention to the vessel, the mission becomes a burden instead of a joy. So today, make the choice. Care for what God gave you. Guard your mind. Honor your body. Create margin. Seek balance. Rest with purpose. Eat with intention. Feed your mind with truth. And as you do, watch your strength return, not just physically, but spiritually, because a whole person is a powerful vessel, and that is what you are called to be. I want to talk to you about something that's easy to overlook, the small daily choices you make. Sometimes we think the big things shape our lives, the grand decisions, the monumental moments, the turning points. But I want to remind you that it's the little things that matter most, the small habits, the quiet routines, the unnoticed patterns that over time build the person you are and the life you live. We often forget this truth. The way you live each day isn't just a repetition of habits, it's the foundation of your destiny. Those tiny choices compound like drops of water carving a canyon, day after day, moment after moment. What you do or fail to do adds up, and that's where most people go wrong. They underestimate the power of the small. They overlook the impact of daily consistency. They ignore the slow but steady erosion or the steady climb toward wholeness. I want to be clear, these small daily mistakes aren't dramatic sins or catastrophic failures. They're subtle, almost invisible. But make no mistake, they are powerful. They shape your mind, your heart, your body, your spirit. They dictate how you think, how you respond, and who you become. When you start your day reacting to the noise around you, instead of seeking God's voice first, you're making a small choice. When you try to do everything at once, scattering your attention, you're making a small choice. When you neglect your body and mind, ignoring what they need to function well, you're making a small choice. Each of these choices by itself might seem insignificant. But the problem is, most people make these mistakes every day. Not once or twice, but consistently. The 80% who live this way don't realize that these small mistakes accumulate. They pile up until one day, life feels heavy, confusing, overwhelming. This is why change feels so hard. Because the problem isn't just the big challenges, it's the slow erosion of daily habits that aren't aligned with God's design for your life. Now here's the good news. Just as small mistakes compound negatively, small positive choices compound positively. Just as neglect erodes your life, daily intentional actions build it up. You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. You don't have to wait for a crisis to make a change. You can start with small, consistent steps that honor God and steward your life well. The Bible calls this faithfulness in little things. Jesus said, "Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much." It's about daily faithfulness, showing up, doing what is right, choosing God's way again and again. These daily choices are like planting seeds. Some days you might not see growth. You might wonder if what you're doing matters. But remember, God is at work beneath the surface. Roots are forming. Strength is building. One day the fruit will show. So when you wake up tomorrow, ask yourself, what small choice can I make that honors? Maybe it's spending 5 minutes in prayer before your phone. Maybe it's saying no to multitasking and yes to focused work. Maybe it's taking care of your body by drinking water, standing up, or resting. Maybe it's choosing kindness instead of impatience, gratitude instead of complaint. It doesn't have to be big, it has to be consistent. This is the way of life God calls us to, not flashes of zeal followed by burnout, but steady, faithful steps, not sporadic bursts of devotion, but daily moments with Him, not rushing through life distracted and weary, but walking with intention, clarity and peace. And here's what happens when you do this. The chaos starts to clear, the noise quiets, your heart begins to align with God's heart, your mind grows sharper, your body feels stronger. You become a person who doesn't just survive, but thrives, a person who reflects God's glory in everyday life. The 20% who avoid these mistakes don't do it because they're perfect. They do it because they recognize the power of daily habit. They know that success isn't a destination, it's a journey made up of daily steps. So let today be the day you stop underestimating the small, stop ignoring the power of the daily, stop thinking that change only comes from big dramatic moments. Start where you are. Choose faithfulness in little things. Trust that God will do the rest, because your life is not built on the grand gestures, it's built on daily faithfulness. There is one final mistake, often overlooked, because it wears the disguise of good intention. Many people fall into this trap daily, unknowingly, and it silently steals their joy, their peace, and their very purpose. It's the failure to recognize the true source of strength and victory, the tendency to rely on our own abilities instead of surrendering fully to God's power. So many try to live the Christian life with a spirit of self-reliance, believing that if they just try harder, push longer, or think more positively, they will overcome their struggles. It's an understandable temptation, because we live in a culture that idolizes independence, self-sufficiency, and personal achievement. But this approach is not only insufficient, it is a lie that sets us up for exhaustion, frustration, and failure. The truth is that apart from God, we can do nothing. This is not a statement meant to discourage you, but one meant to awaken you. It's an invitation to stop trying in your own strength and start depending wholly on the Lord. The moment you accept this, your burdens begin to lift, your path becomes clearer, and your soul finds rest. Too often people think faith is a checklist of good works or a personal effort to be better. They think prayer is just another task to tick off, or that spiritual growth comes from willpower and discipline alone. But faith is not about your strength, it's about God's. It's not about what you can do, it's about what He has already done and continues to do through you. When you try to live apart from this truth, your heart becomes weary, you become prone to discouragement, doubt, and despair. You chase after temporary fixes and feel empty even when things seem to be going well. You rely on your own understanding and strategies, forgetting that God's wisdom is higher than yours. This self-reliance also breeds pride, even if it's hidden beneath humility. It says, "I can handle this on my own," rather than, "Lord, I need." It cuts off the lifeline of grace and mercy that God freely offers. But when you turn from this mistake and embrace dependence on God, your life begins to change profoundly. Your struggles don't necessarily disappear, but you no longer face them alone. You discover a peace that surpasses understanding. You learn to rest in God's timing and His power, even when the world presses in. The Bible tells us, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." This means your weakness is not a barrier to God's work. It is the very place where His power is revealed. When you admit you can't do it alone, God steps in to carry you, to strengthen you, and to lead you. Think about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. He knew the weight of what was coming. He prayed earnestly, asking if there was another way, yet he surrendered to the Father's will. He showed us the example of dependence on God's strength in the face of overwhelming trials. If the Son of God, perfect and without sin, needed to lean on the Father, how much more do this mistake, trying to live the Christian life in our own power, is perhaps the most common and most damaging mistake we make. It cuts us off from the very source of life and renewal. It leaves us tired, discouraged, and far from the abundant life Jesus promised. So I urge you today, lay down your own efforts, stop striving in your own strength. Come to God as a child, admitting your need, asking for His power, and trusting His grace. Let Him be your strength when you are weak, your hope when you are weary, and your guide when you are lost. Because true victory, true peace, true joy, they don't come from your ability to try harder. They come from surrendering fully to the one who is able to do immeasurably more than all you ask or imagine.